Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to Grow As We Go.
Hey everyone, I'm Angie.
Hi, it's Ashley.
I'm Fatima.
And I'm Diana. And today we are going to talk about all things self-love. And who doesn't like to talk about that?
So Valentine's Day just passed, so we wanted to talk about the importance on loving yourself during this time. Not just this month, but every single day.
So we hope y'all focused on Valentine's Day on not only giving love to your friends and families or loved ones, but also on yourself. I saw this one tweet the other day and it was like, you're growing up when you realize that Valentine's Day isn't only dedicated to like your person, but also like your friends and family and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like growing up, it was always about like, I remember in elementary school, you would give out grams and stuff to like your whole classmates and stuff. That was fun.
But I think it was always like, you always wanted someone to be like giving you that Valentine's gift, it was always like that romantic love, like you know.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that was like good for us to grow up with? Because it was never like give to your family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I grew up like obviously like, oh, like you're gonna give your classmates like that stuff, but I know like my mom would always like give me like a little thing for me.
Yeah. I never like really grew up just focused on giving your partner something. It was more for like everybody. Like I never saw it that way growing up.
That's interesting because I'm the opposite. Like from my family, I'd always see my dad get like my mom flowers, but he never like gave us any flowers. So like I always thought like this is a romantic thing. Like this is for if you have a partner. And then like seeing like my older siblings in relationships and stuff, and like everything in the movies and like in social media, like it was always, for me at least, it was always centered around like a romantic partner. It was never like, let me give my friends flowers on Valentine's Day,
Yeah. That's so crazy because my dad would give my mom like a bouquet of flowers and whatever, and he would give me and my sister like a rose and something like chocolate.
That's so sweet.
And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Do you think like when we went to high school and we started doing, because I remember that was like our first thing, we did like Galentine's. Do you think that was like your first time where you started to like realize that, Angie?
Oh, for sure. And I think that was honestly the first time that I had something special like that I had something to do on Valentine's Day that wasn't with a romantic partner. So I feel like that really did give me a whole different insight on what Valentine's Day really means, and like loving not just your romantic partner but your friends, your family too.
Yeah. And I think it's also like an excuse to like give love separately to like one day on Valentine's Day, usually I spend it with my boyfriend, and then like I do Galentine's with you guys, and I still do something small for my family. So I give like that. What is it like?
You like to spread the love.
Yes, spread the love individually.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, for me, self-love is basically recharging my soul, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if it's because I'm a deep person but I think that for me, self-love is so vital, and I like try my best to always give back to myself, but not too much where it's kind of like, like kind of, what is that?
In moderation?
Egocentric. Yeah, in moderation. So it doesn't turn into being egocentric. You get me? Like a balance in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think as I grow up, self-love is taking on a whole different meaning. Like before growing up, I never really, or maybe I just didn't really understand the depths of what self-love is. I think now self-love, I could completely agree. It's recharging yourself, but also getting to know yourself on a deeper level. And I think I think we assume because we live in our body and we have our brain and we have our soul that we assume that we know ourselves completely because we're living in ourselves. But I think self-love is getting to know the depths and the layers of that make you who you are, and like through reflection, through spending time alone, through having deep, intricate conversations with people that you love that help you get to know you more, and I think that's just that. To me, that's what self-love.
What you point out is really interesting because like what you said, like we never really know who we really are. And I feel like sometimes when you fill out like certain questionnaires, like other than like what's your favorite color, like what stuff like that, like I'm always like, I don't know these answers, so I feel like asking these questions to yourselves can help you develop like a viewpoint or like a certain stance on whatever topic it is. So I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, and it's like we should ask ourselves like, how do we feel about this topic, because like you never know
what do you like, what do you dislike.
The constant check-ins, for sure.
I think not until I got to my 20s. I'm like so old, huh? I'm like barely 21 when I turned 22. But barely now I'm discovering that importance of, like what you were saying, Angie, of talking to individuals who are like-minded and talking to people that want to discover more just like you, and how important that is to expand your mind, and how that really deepens your discoveries about yourself. And as you said, Ashley, like asking yourself, like, who am I? You know, that's so like profound, because when you think about that, you're like, wait, actually, who am I? You know?
And I think it's also important because like sometimes when you go into like interviews or whatever for whatever position, they ask you who you are, and it's like, I feel like that's always a question that stumps up a lot of people. So I think it's important that you like kind of reflect and see, like, you know, who am I? Like, what's interesting about me? And I think, I don't know who it was, but one of y'all mentioned that like one card game or whatever.
Yeah, I have it right here. It's called We're Not Really Strangers.
Tell us more about it.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I don't know. I don't have the game. I've never played it.
Okay. But this game is, I would say, like a reflection game that you play with people that, either people that you really know or even strangers, or you could even play by yourself. It has like different levels of questions. I think the reason why this thing is like kind of popping off, because I feel like conversations like this isn't something that really is considered to be like an everyday thing or kind of normal. And but it's also really important because through these games, you not only learn about the person that you're listening to, but about yourself too. Because it could even be like questions about like, what would you call this chapter in your life right now? Like things like that, like those deep reflections. I mean, I played with Diana once. I think we played a couple times, right? How do you think that went?
Yeah, we did play together. It was really interesting to know one another, and like you said, you really do learn about yourself, because you have to like think about these questions and really be like, wait, hold up, hold the phone, and then yeah.
And I think Diana, you mentioned earlier or a couple episodes ago about like the importance of getting to know yourself, because I think you said that like sets up like the foundation for like how you interact with other people and the relationships that you have with them. So I think it's also really important that we get to know ourselves, which also can kind of, I feel like self-love and getting is a part, I mean, I feel like getting to know yourself is a part of self-love.
100%.
How would you ladies explain that to someone who is pretty foreign to this concept? Like how self-love is important because it sets the foundation for your relationships, your kinships, how you'll manage your life in general. Like, why is this so vital?
I think it goes even beyond like your relationships with other people. I think your relationships with everything in life, like the way that you view life.
I have an example of what I experienced when I was at my lowest point. Like I didn't realize it. I would easily get mad at myself, or I would get easily bothered until I think my boyfriend was the one who told me. He's like, I've noticed that you recently get bothered a lot, or you get angry, or you're not like in the mood for a lot of things. And at that time I didn't love myself. I didn't love in the place I was at, and that was really reflecting on the relationships I had with my family, even my boyfriend at the time, until he pretty much snapped me out of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this, it's because I'm not happy with myself. So I'm reflecting that onto, and I'm taking it out on other people.
So what are some of the things that you did, I guess, to like fall in love with yourself again? Or is it just you just like realizing it that like set off like that thing, or like what was it?
So I think I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes, that when I had that reality check with my mom. So I think from there I started realizing, okay, what are the patterns in my life? What am I missing? So I pretty much just started focusing on what's going to really make me happy. For example, I started eating healthier, and that's something that also like affects, like for your eating and your exercising, you know, like my energy level was a big part. That was a big part of me that was not well. So I started with that. I started having like a better routine, and like a healthier routine, and understanding what was making me unhappy and why.
Was your motivation like wanting to be a better version of yourself, or what was your motivation? Because I know this journey can be very hard for some people, and maybe some people are where they didn't even realize, or they still haven't aware like how they are mentally and physically. And yeah,
at the time, just because I was always so on top of myself, and like I was always, you know, taking care of myself physically, like my diet, my mentality, even school, and I think I let that go at the time so badly that my motivation was like, I need to better myself, and I need to better pretty much just my routine, and like being focused.
I think what made you like get to this that I really like that you did was like those check-ins. Like you really checked in with yourself, is like, okay, like what can I do to make myself happy? Like what is it that I value? What is it that helps me value me? And I feel like a lot of people, when they're going through like internal conflicts with themselves, they start to kind of pinpoint external things, like, no, it's externally this is happening to me, which is making me feel like this. But I think what I have learned throughout my journey with self-love too is that a lot of the times when I feel a certain way about external things, it's because it's a reflection of how I feel internally. That makes sense. Like my reaction to the external is a projection of how I'm feeling inside.
I don't know if it's just me, but I'm like really, really, really hard on myself. I don't know why, but I've always just been like really hard on myself. And one thing that really helped me like realize that I was hard on myself, because I didn't know that I was hard on myself, was my coaches. So I was always involved in a lot of sports and stuff. And I remember I've always been like I put everything into it. And I remember I always get like really upset. And my coach, one of my basketball coaches, should be like, I think you're just way too hard on yourself. Like, you need to relax. And I was like, what do you mean I need to relax? But then like her telling me that was like, oh, okay, like you're right. And then later, like my teacher started saying this, like, you're way too hard on yourself. And I feel like that kind of gave me like a reality check. And like I still struggle with that. Like I think I'm still hard on myself, but I think what changes is that like I need to, or at least I'll talk to y'all about it, and then I start to think like I need to chill. Like I'm being like too hard on myself. So I feel like just like what Angie was saying and what Fatih was saying is that you need to be cognizant of yourself and like have patience with yourself. Like it's okay that you don't do everything that you want to.
It takes so much patience and time
and compassion.
So much. Yeah,
I feel like we're always super quick to give patience to other people and other things and compassion, but I wonder why we feel that we don't deserve the same patience and compassion that we give, you know?
I think it goes to what Ashley was saying. We're just hard on ourselves, consciously or unconsciously. It's like an inevitable of human nature, I feel like, is to be your biggest self-critic, your biggest enemy. And that's like the scary part about it, but that it's also beautiful because you have that control. It's not controlling you, and you can make the decision to choose to go the other way and not go the way that you've always been going, and thinking differently than what you've always been thinking, you know, because it's that sudden like consciousness, sudden thought in you that can provoke the new journey to your better self, if that makes sense, you know? And situations, because I know that we can very much get worried about other circumstances, and we always forget about ourselves. But like, how do you guys remember to give back to yourself, or what gives you that like, oh shit, what's wrong with me? Like I need to, you get me? Like what's that point, that limit to where you're so overstressed, overwhelmed, where you're like, shit?
I think it for sure is always talking to others about it, because I feel like they give you another point of view of yourself, if that makes sense. And it's so funny how you can point out all these things about yourself that you're going through, but then that other person will be like, what do you mean? Like, I think you're chilling or something like that. And I feel like that's why it's always important to like kind of voice how you're feeling, so that you can say like, am I crazy? Or like, do you guys see this too? And then if other people agree with it, or they like, you know what, yeah, I have noticed that you've been doing so and so and so, and you're like, oh crap, like maybe I do need to work with it. Because it's like, but I feel like you have to do it with the right people. And I feel like that's like the hardest part, knowing who to confide in,
or if
knowing who has your best interest. Because like if somebody doesn't give a crap about you, they can be like, yeah, you're crazy, you're going through all this shit, and you're like, oh crap. But then that's the hard part, is like, who really has their best interests for me?
I think for me, when I my turning points when I know that I'm lacking in self-love is when I realize that I haven't really where I feel kind of distant from like who it is that I am, like where I feel distant from my values, distant from the things that I know that I love to do. When I'm too caught up in whatever the hell is going on externally. And for me to realize that, I try to at least check in with myself every once in a while. Like, okay, how does that make me feel? Like, how am I waking up in the morning after a day of doing yada, yada, yada? You know what I mean? I think constantly checking in on yourself and asking yourself like, okay, how does this make me feel? How is my body feeling? How is my mind feeling? Like, am I tense? Like, I think those constant questions to yourself, I know they sound kind of weird and mundane, like why am I asking myself like how I'm feeling, but I think it's so important.
Talking to yourself is really important. Some people think like, oh, you're crazy, why are you talking to yourself? But it's a good,
it allows you to like project your thoughts, so it's not just inherent.
It allows you to project your thoughts. It allows you to think better. For example,
because when you think it out loud, it's like,
yeah, I think after a year and a half of taking care of myself and realizing what was making me unhappy, the other day it was like a week before school, and I was looking at the stuff I needed and my supplies, and it was just a lot that I needed to take and difficult things. I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be difficult for me to get, and I was like freaking out, you know. And I was starting to like having a panic attack, like I wanted to throw up, and I was like, no. I was like, I literally took a step back, closed my computer. I was like, I'm gonna go wash my face, do my skincare routine. I'm gonna read a book, or I'm gonna do something that's gonna take my mind off of that. And I'm gonna go back, puzzled up together, and I'm gonna look at it calmly. And then it was all fine. I think realizing what's making you panic and taking that step back is very important, because it just makes things worse.
And sometimes it's good for me. It's like to go on a run or something if you're feeling like overwhelmed and stuff. Is just to like let it out, and then you can come back and you're a whole new different person. But I think a tip that I have is like if somebody's kind of struggling to kind of find their self-love or to kind of discover who they are, I think the first step is very important, is to knowing what your values are. You can probably Google a sheet or something and like fill out like, what are my values? And I feel like that can let you kind of see what your holistic, what your look, how do I say
like
it?
make your own compass, right?
Yeah, like
your moral compass. Yeah,
your moral compass, and see like, what do I actually value in life and what am I working towards? Because sometimes you may feel like you're a deer in headlights. You're like, what's going on? Like, what am I doing
so
with my
lost.
life?
You're just like floating.
Yeah, so I think like sitting down with yourself and like filling out a value sheet is for sure very helpful. And I didn't do that until college, which is crazy. I remember somebody asking me like, what are your values? And I'm like, what am I what? Like, what are you talking about? What are these values that you're talking about?
I was like, what is a value? Like, I honestly didn't know at the time.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely like a good start off of showing yourself self-love.
I would agree. I remember my first year of high school, after I went through like this, I was very depressed and stuff. Now looking back, I realized that I remember me journaling and writing down like, what do I value? What is that? Like what? And it's so crazy looking back, because I didn't even know in the moment that was like my own form of like self-love. And I remember that I knew that I valued at the moment school, family. Like at the time I really liked reading. Like I was reading like After and stuff, or those little fan fictions of One Direction. Like I remember like all those little things that I loved to do were just ways that I like to spend time with myself. If that makes sense. Like,
and it's good to have, because you write these things down, and when you're feeling like you're not yourself, you can always go back to them and be like, wait, hold on. And like you read a book or you do something that you like doing, and you're like, wow, this feels so good. And you're like, why was I stressing again? Like you forget about it. And I think also being mindful of yourself in a way where you acknowledge like certain things, like how Fatih said, certain things trigger you, or you're like feeling overwhelmed, you're like, oh shit, and being mindful enough to catch yourself, like what Fatih did, because if you don't, it can be very dangerous for you to go in the spiral, and then it doesn't help you. You're like suffering, but you can always just change that by just being mindful in how you feel, and like exactly what you said, Angie.
I definitely do think that spending time alone in solitude with yourself is super vital to, at least in the beginning, while you're building a foundation of trying to learn how to love yourself. Like, for example, I really like taking my mornings is like my form of self-love. Like, I truly love my mornings. Like, I like going on walks and listening to intentional music or intentional things in the morning to like help feed me, like starting off by reading or an audiobook or healing frequencies, like things like that just helps me bring myself back to myself. Or like I remember you said, Diana, like bringing your awareness back to your body. I think those little things for me at least are super important.
Yeah, and even journaling, like even if you don't know what you're gonna write, just start writing anything, and I bet you like your thoughts will come in and you'll be writing something you don't even know you're feeling, and it just so alleviates that all this thinking in your head, and like you get to put on the paper. Like it's truly therapeutic. Well, at least for me, it's been very therapeutic.
I've never actually tried journaling, but maybe I will try it. But I honestly, like, I don't know, like, what am I gonna write about? Like, it's
Literally
so
anything that
weird.
pops in your head. Like, write about your day. Like, today I woke up and ate a bagel.
I would feel like I'm in middle school in my diary. Like, today I did this.
It sounds
but-
silly, but
It sounds, yeah, you start literally write that, and then you start writing, you know what, I'm gonna write about this, and you start getting more like enthusiastic by it, and then you just start writing and writing.
and then you also get like ideas.
I have such bad memory, so like I never know. Like, people are telling me stories, I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, what happened? But then I do have a couple notes here and there. And then looking back at it, you're like, that's so funny. Like, it's like you remember that event, I guess.
For sure. I think it would help with your memory because like you start to that like helps you reflect on your day. You know, you're like kind of reliving it twice, but this
Yeah.
time you're checking in like, how did I feel at that moment? You know?
I saw this YouTuber, she's been talking about like a 5-minute journal. And I was like, maybe
Yes.
that will be beneficial, but I don't know. I'm still like on the fence about getting it or not.
Like your
But I
journal
do-
for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Huh?
Like you journal for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I think they ask you like certain questions.
No,
Yeah.
that's very important. I have sticky notes all the time by me, and it's like stay enthusiastic, like remember your vision. Like I always have these random reminders because it's so
Reminders, yeah.
it helps you so much, especially when you're feeling like you wake up and you're like, wait, where am I? And then like you read it and you're like, oh shit, I am the
Dude,
shit. You know?
honestly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you shouldn't be afraid of trying new things. Like, it maybe, for example, like reading books to me, it was like, ugh, I'm too lazy. Like, I'm interested, like, I want to read, but I'm too lazy, and it's just, I don't have the patience to read. But then once I started reading, like, this year, I was like, oh my God, like, I want to keep reading, but then I have to
Doors
be like, okay,
open?
it's like, yeah, like, I really like it, you know? It's just picking that thing up and, like, doing it.
Running
You
with
might
it.
like it, yeah.
I think I also feel like, I don't know if it's just like the era that we're in, and I feel like we're so caught up on like, or like society is so caught up on like celebrities and what they're doing, and then social media, and then you're like so focused on what other people are doing, so you kind of don't really like there's always something to catch up onto that doesn't relate to you, if that makes sense. And so then I feel like that takes time away from you focusing on yourself. So I feel like maybe, I don't know if it's just like a generational thing, like have we always been like this, but like I always think like, why do I care about these celebrities? Like it doesn't make sense. Like, why are these like the news that I look at about celebrities? So then it's like, okay, like that's not what you're interested. Like you could care less. Like they don't really contribute anything to your life. But I think they're kind of there to distract people from their reality or like an escape. I don't know. It's really interesting.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like the society has become a lot of distractions and a lot of options and a lot of in your face. So it's like so easy to get distracted into it.
I agree, dude. I unfollowed the Kardashians a couple months ago because
Me too.
not because I think they're terrible people, but just because like I would get so caught up in what they were doing, and even other people too, like other accounts. Like I was like, dude, like for what, you know? And I think that could be a form of self-care, is like being picky with what you choose to spend your time on.
Yeah, because I follow more people that are more about self-care, that are more into their self-care, because that kind of motivates you to do it. Like, okay, I'm gonna do self-care for myself, you know? And
Since today's society is like a lot about social media, I think a thing that will help will like of unfollowing those people that make no plus to your life, like following accounts that will give you fuel your energy with like information about self-love or information about environment or I don't know what, but some things that will give you instead of taking from you, if that makes sense. I find that we're always trying to accomplish a goal, or we're trying to do this and that, but then we always forget to be like, hey, nice job, nice work. Like the other day, like I was doing this task and I was just so focused, and then after I was like gonna go somewhere and I was like, wait, hold up, and I literally was like, good job, Diana, good job. And it felt good, 'cause I was like, wow, this feels good.
I love
you know?
that. Dude, I love that.
Yeah,
honestly.
it happened to me this week. I was writing down all of my to-do lists for this week, and I was like, and I finished one of them, and I was like, oh my God, I got one thing off the list.
Like rewarding yourself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, exactly. I feel like sometimes you're like, okay, on to the next. And it's like, chill. Like, you just did something. Like, go get yourself that Starbucks. Go buy yourself a donut. Like,
You best believe I'm with my Starbucks.
No, dude, seriously.
So I also think that being with myself is very important, because there's days where I just want to be by myself and just roam around the mall or window shop or go to Home Goods and just create those aesthetics that I want in my future home in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would
All
want
your creative
that.
flows.
Yeah, go get myself a Starbucks or something. Go somewhere far, even something I would never regularly do.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, oh my gosh, like I had a day with myself and it was really fun. And I think it's very important and therapeutic sometimes, you know?
Yeah, that's my favorite. I love being by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's just like, for me personally, like I would say I'm extroverted. Like I love being out there and stuff, but I think it's like I also like being to myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I love spending time with myself. I love going to the stores by myself. Like I love running errands with myself. I think that's the best thing to do, and just like jamming out. Like that has been like the funnest part these past couple 9 months that I have been doing, you know. I really love it, and I think that's also considered like a form of self-love, because you're learning to be with yourself. And I've always been like a really independent person, but I didn't start to realize that that's also like a form of self-love, just like hanging out with yourself and vibing.
I think that's definitely true. I 100% agree that through my journey with self-love too, I've been trying to spend more time alone and do things by myself and not have to wait for like a friend to join me, or like say for example, if I want to go to the beach, like going to the beach and doing things by yourself is also okay, and that's also exactly self-love. And I think through spending time with yourself, you start to realize like how you could be your own best self and like your best friend, and that could also, your own company is honestly like the best company, because you get to really know yourselves in depth. And I think the more that you start to appreciate yourself, the more simultaneously you start to appreciate all the little things around you. Like I feel like it's like
you're more
like
cognizant of things around you, because it's like, what else are you gonna look at, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of like driving. It's like you have the most deepest thoughts and you just wonder, how did I even get home? But I reflect a lot when I'm driving.
Wait, I'm concerned.
Girl, you better
Girl, don't tell me you never had those days where you're just thinking and thinking, you're just like, wait, how did I get here?
I've heard people have those moments. But you know what, now that I'm thinking, I still haven't done this, but one of my coworkers and him and I were talking about, I don't know how we're talking about movies. And he's like, yeah, I go to the movies all the time by myself. I'm like, what? You go to the movies
Dude,
by
I used to do that all the
yourself?
time. Yes.
I can't. I don't know if it's because like I'm not a movie, like I don't like going to, I'm not a movie person, and I don't like going to the movie theaters. But he's always told me like he's like, you need to go to the movies by yourself. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go one day. But I've never actually done that, and I don't know if I will do that because like I don't like movies. But maybe if it's like a really good movie that I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go see that, maybe I will do that. But I don't know, like, you guys have been to the movies by yourself?
Yeah, I used to go all the time.
I remember Diana would just be like, oh, I want to go see this movie. And we'd be like, with who? She's like, by myself. It's so dope. I've only done that, like, I think once or twice. I know that I did that once with my parents. Like, they want to go see a different movie. And I was like, no, I just want to do my own thing. And I remember once I took myself on a little self-care day after work. And I really wanted to see a movie, but I didn't want to wait on anyone. I just wanted to be by myself, and I want to go see it. And it's cool. Like, you just vibe it on your own.
Yeah, dude. And it's so just comforting. Just you discover more about yourself too, like what you like, what you don't like, and you have that freedom to not worry about anybody else. You don't have to be like, yo, what do you want to eat? It's like, no, what do I want to eat? What do I want to eat?
No, I was gonna say I agree with Ashley of like being extroverted, but then also being introverted in the sense of like also valuing your alone time and or needing that to recharge. You know?
Yeah.
Like when you're alone, I can speak for myself. When I'm alone, I'm not just like to myself. Like I love to talk to people and be like, hey, like I like to get to know people and like not be so to myself, you know.
Yeah.
But I also been wanting to like explore California more, so I want to, like, for an example, and I challenge you guys to do this too, to go from wherever we're living like 10 miles some direction and just go and find out what's there and then explore somewhere, because you're still in California. It's not like it's far away, you know. And I think that would be so cool for someone to go by themselves. I'm sure you'll discover more about
honestly
yourself.
That's pretty cool, because I feel like we always have like, okay, I'm here and I'm gonna go to this destination and that's it. But I think
you know exactly where everything is.
Like I know what street this is and stuff like that, but I think that's pretty cool. And like we have the privilege to like use, if we get lost, we can use GPS to come back home. Because I feel like before that probably was like the worry, like, oh crap, like am I gonna get lost? I don't know where I'm going. So I think that's a really good challenge. I probably will do it one of these days. But I think with what Angie was saying about being an extrovert and introvert, I always thought about it as a way of kind of like recharging myself. It's like, yeah, I'm being so social with all these people, but when I come home, I just love like unwinding and being to myself. And I don't know, that's the way that I always saw it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing doing a self-care day with somebody else, but I think it should be done with somebody who matches your energy.
Yes.
because if
That
it's
is
with
so
someone
huge.
you can't really talk to, or like kind of like develop thoughts that you have, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's kind of like a downer,
I 100% agree with you, Fatih, on like if you do self-care night with someone else, have them be at like at matching energy, because if not, just you can't really immerse yourself in the moment, when there's like someone not matching where you're at. I don't know, I think that's so important too. Like, I agree 100%.
I think also it's good to pay attention to what you're listening to. Music has a very big influential part of how you feel, because it evokes an emotion among you, and listening to upbeat music, or even music that makes you feel your best self, I think is very important too. Even when you're getting ready, or doing homework, I feel like it can like really just transition your mood. And also the frequencies that they were saying, Angie, listening to that at night, they're like the bowls. What are they called? The sound bowls?
The singing bowls?
Singing bowls,
healing
yeah.
bowls,
Listening to
bowls,
those and like just, getting all your energies in line. I think that's really cool. That a resource that we have to try out if you haven't tried it, because I highly recommend it.
I think realizing that everything that you do, everything you listen to, everything you eat, everything you
consume,
go about your life it's going to nurture you, either that be in a good way or a bad way. So I think being cognizant of that, it's going to help you learn to love yourself, and you're going to realize like, this what makes me feel good, and this what doesn't make me feel good.
All right, gals, I think it's a perfect time for us to hop into our Discover Her segment. So what did we learn?
I think it's very important that we each take care of ourselves, and that we fall in love with ourselves every single day, and that we know who we really are, so that we can strengthen our relationships with other people and those around us.
Definitely agree. I learned to be your own best friend. Exactly. Fall in love with yourself, as cheesy as that sounds, and really be intentional with what it is that you choose to intake, because everything's going to nurture you, whether that be good or bad. So spend time alone and enjoy and indulge in that.
Yeah, always feed yourself with good energy and spread that energy to others who don't have that, and be that motivation for others and yourself.
And also to always be grateful. No matter what happens, be grateful, and as you said, mindful and intentional with how you perceive your life and what you intake into your body. That can greatly impact the way you feel overall. So we send all our love to you guys, because we love you.
All the love.
Alrighty, thanks for joining us today, everyone. For more content, head over to our IG at Girls We Go Podcast, and also head over to our YouTube channel if you'd like to see us. We hope y'all enjoyed your dose of growth for today, and remember to always strive for growth.
Alrighty, bye.
See you next Tuesday. Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.